works, but we're going to kind of look at them through some of these photos that I've sent you. So the first one I want to open up is, top one should be 44.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a raw file. We'll pull it into Photoshop and it'll open up your raw camera format. And
Is that under what?
it should be the basic retouching folder. It should be under downloads. And the top one, number DSC something 44.
Net?
Yeah,
It's gonna be in basic.
it's a Nikon raw file. Pull it into Photoshop and it should open in Camera Raw. Didn't open in Camera Raw, let me know. Very top one, Octavian.
Did you take that?
Yes.
Oh, my airdrop is in here.
And leave it in Camera Raw. So basic retouching, you got that folder, Faye?
No.
Okay, turn on your airdrop, please.
Okay.
How would you make someone's eyes pop out?
Which one is it? How do I do it again?
Huh?
How would you make
Airdrop.
someone's eyes show better than their dark eyes?
I do, what? What do you mean?
Like, take the picture.
I usually put a reflector in the middle.
You mean make their eyes stand out more? Like in Photoshop or when we're shooting?
When you're shooting.
Use flash? Or yeah, use a reflector or something. Use some type of light.
I usually fill it, just like portraits.
Yeah, you can use some type of small fill light. Just depends on what you want to do. So, everybody got this open? Mr. Tony,
Yep.
find it,
Yes.
open it. Everybody else got it open? Because I want to show you guys Camera Raw real quick. And one of the things that, this is Lightroom, essentially. And the way that you guys would sort of process files would be, you'd be in Lightroom first, and then you'd move over to Photoshop. So all of this dialogue would be what you would do in Lightroom, right? You guys following me so far? This dialogue pretty much looks the same. However, sometimes you can just open a raw file directly into Photoshop and work on it here. It's just different types of workflows. But what I wanted to do is just show you sort of what we might do on a portrait if we were processing it, if we knew we were going to take it into Photoshop. So this isn't necessarily for all portraits. You may have a specific way in Lightroom that you do your portraits, and that's fine. But if you knew you were going to take your portrait into Photoshop to do some work like retouching, take out some of the lines, take out some dimples, take out some freckles, zits, whatever, right? You might process that photo slightly differently because of its final destination. So one of the things that I like to do when I'm looking at a photo, especially if I've shot it, if it's a portrait, is to look at it in Camera Raw, which would be the Lightroom developed. So I start looking over here. First thing I do is I'm going to mess with the color temperature to make sure that I have the color temperature that I want. It looks kind of fine, but honestly it could be warmed up a little bit. So I'll just take my temperature slider and warm her up just a little bit, probably about 4,300 from 4,100. So I'm not doing much, just adding a little bit of extra warmth to that. Tint, I'm gonna leave alone, I'm not gonna mess with. Exposure. How's our exposure look here?
It's
Is it
fine.
okay? Is it bad?
No, it's good.
It's fine. I could probably brighten it up. I've got some room in the highlights here that I could probably work my way into. And I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do a little bit of this work in Camera Raw or in Lightroom before I move to Photoshop. I'm not gonna go crazy with it, right? So I'm just gonna move my slider up just a little bit, kind of watching the left side of her cheek, maybe about a half a stop. I'm gonna leave the contrast slider completely alone. I am not going to touch the contrast slider. If anything, I would decrease the contrast in this portrait if I knew I was taking it into Photoshop. Why might I do that? Why might I decrease contrast? What is one of the things that you typically end up fixing on portraits? Yeah, hair, but like about the face.
Oh, skin tone.
Skin tone, but you know, what else do people usually want removed?
Blemishes?
Blemishes. What happens if I have high contrast?
It brings them out more?
It brings the blemishes out more. So if I go ahead and lower my contrast here, the blemishes that I do take into Photoshop will be less apparent, giving myself less work. I don't always have to do that though. On her, I don't really have to do that. Highlights, I just want to make sure I'm not blown out anywhere and that my lighting is relatively good. And I've got some work already done here. I added 5 on the highlights. I went down on the shadows about 8. I added about 6 on the whites, and I took the blacks down about 16. I probably might take the highlights down a little bit more. You don't want that, right? It's getting that weird ghosty skin. So I'll put it back to where it was fine. What about clarity? Would I want to mess with clarity?